My name is Diana Kovalev, and I will be covering a persuasive approach about the topic of added sugars and their negative impact. First of all, sugar by itself does not give any nutritional value besides energy. Natural sugar is what is naturally occurring in foods such as fruits and carbohydrates such as whole grains and vegetables. These turn into glucose, which is the body's preferred method of getting its energy. Added sugar, on the other hand, is typically man-made. For example, high fructose corn syrup and vert sugar are all made in a laboratory. The image here is an MRI of the brain's response to sugar versus cocaine. The center that is activated is the reward center of the brain that releases dopamine when it experiences any kind of pleasure. Ultimately, food can become addictive because of this response in the reward center. It was found that the desire to eat comes from here as well. Similarly, a Yale School of Medicine study evaluated the brain's response to two types of sugar, glucose and fructose. Only glucose, the natural sugar, suppressed the regions in the brain that promote the desire to eat and left the individual more satisfied and full. Fructose, the added sugar, did none of that, and so the person was still hungry. On another note, artificial sweeteners are especially dangerous because they are sweeter than both natural sugar and added sugars. This intensifies sugar cravings and sugar addiction. In December of 1953, the major tobacco companies published a frank statement to cigarette smokers that stated that the people's health are a basic responsibility to their businesses. This was done to elude Americans from the fact that there are negative effects of smoking. Ultimately, their money and sales of tobacco was at stake. In relationship to that, big food companies have recently been under the scrutiny of tobacco-style lawsuits. One of the things that the suits revolve around is the mislabeling on products, and not to mention the failure to warn the public and marketing to children. For example, in 2008, Snapple was sued for labeling their fruit juices as all natural, when in fact they turned out to have high fructose corn syrup. And likewise, Kraft was sued for failing to label the fact that their Oreos had hydrogenated oils. So the food and sugar companies are acting like the tobacco companies did in the 80s and 90s. They're not telling the consumer everything. And this is all because it revolves around money. The more the consumers eat, the more money the companies make. However, the private companies are held above the public welfare. So, of course, during trials, the industries responded in the same manner like the tobacco companies did, denying knowledge of any health dangers to not lose any sales. So even though these lawsuits do not seem like they're getting far, besides changing a few companies' methods of creating food, there is hope that the pressure on these industries will force them to stop the manipulation of the public. The health effects of added sugars is contributing to an epidemic that costs taxpayers not only on their wallet, but their health. The World Health Organization has research that shows that the percentage of adults who are overweight and obese has risen in recent decades. People are more overweight than they used to be. Again, association does not necessarily mean causation, but when sugar is taken into the body as an excess energy, it does turn into fat. The typical American consumes about 30 teaspoons of added sugar a day in the average 2,000 calorie diet. While according to the American Heart Association, the recommended sugar limit for this specific 2,000 calorie diet is 5 teaspoons. So there is 25 extra teaspoons of sugar. What's even more surprising is that the Food and Drug Administration does not enforce any type of regulation of percent daily value of sugar amounts on nutrition labels. And on their website, their reason for this is that, and I quote, "No daily reference value has been established for sugars because no recommendations have been made for the total amount to eat in a day. Keep in mind the sugars listed on the nutrition facts label include naturally occurring sugars, like those found in fruit and milk, as well as those added to food or drink." End quote. Well, we've just heard that the American Heart Association does have a recommendation. So that's a little inconclusive. And as a registered nurse, I can understand that measuring the total amount of sugar is challenging when there's the natural and then the added. However, the fact still remains that the added sugar can be measured and written. Thus, perhaps by some means, there should at least be a percent daily value for the added sugar provided on nutrition labels instead of none whatsoever. And it's important to note that sugar is important in the diet. It's a key essential for brain function. So it's not completely healthy to eliminate it out of the diet, but a moderation of it is needed. Therefore, a percent daily value is needed. We can see that beverage companies alone spend billions of dollars on marketing to make commercials and advertisements, and these are specifically aimed towards children. Demographics show children from 6 to 11 years of age had 20% increase in consumption of soft drinks. A culture of sugar and unhealthy diet is brainwashed into the generations that will become the future. When was the last time someone has seen a broccoli commercial more than a soda commercial? It's absurd. And information from the Obesity Action Coalition showed evidence from a national study of overweight sixth graders where 24% of boys and 30% of girls were rejected or bullied because of their size. Not only are there physical effects, such as obesity, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease that stem from it, but there are also psychological ramifications as well. This is clearly a problem, and the solution is scattered between the need for the government to provide regulation, the need to increase consumer education about this nutritional aspect of this issue, so that we eliminate a culture that encourages unhealthy eating habits perpetuated through advertisements, and the obligation of the sugar companies and food companies to provide truthful representation of their products. So the one solution that can happen is the one that involves both you and me. The rest is litigation that seems beyond our grasp. But awareness of this issue can help push people to investigate this problem and change the face of this nation's health crisis. This is a problem, but fortunately, there is a solution.